Good morning. My name is Kwok Hui Lan. I teach theology at Kendra School of Theology at Emory University, located at Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. Today, we are very privileged to have Dr. Jione Havea to share with us current developments in theology in the Pacific. Dr. Havea is a native Methodist pastor from Tonga and research fellow with Trinity Methodist Theological College in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and with the Public and Contextual Theology Research Centre of Charles Sturt University in Australia. He is the author of many books, including Jonah, an Earth Bible Commentary, and Losing Ground, Reading Roof in the Pacific. He has edited many volumes, such as Doing Theology with the New Normal, Global Perspectives, and Doing Theology in the Pacific. He is also the editor of the series, The Colonial Theology, as well as the series on International Voices in Biblical Studies. He is currently visiting and speaking in Manila, and he joins us from there. So I would like to invite Dr. Havea to speak to us.
Thank you, Quilan and colleagues, for this invitation. And please feel free to interrupt, because this is part of, I'm a person of all cultures, and interruption is very key to our culture as I'll explain, in Oceania or Pacific. I'm going to share this PowerPoint so that it helps me stay focused. I know there's other people who have just joined us, and I guess you can introduce yourself at some point. We'll follow Professor Puilan's direction. But let me see if this works. So what I'll be trying to do is to explain what Moana theologizing. Theologizing is different from Moana theologies, because when you talk about a Moana theology or a feminist theology, it feels like you're talking about a product rather than a process. So what we are trying to do in this part of the world is to reclaim that this is theology, the doing of theology is an event. So I've given this title to my short presentation. And I want to start by problematizing this thing that has been, this umbrella that has been put over us, Asia Pacific. I know that Spivak has invited regionalism as something that we need to take account of. But she also said that the Pacific is that part of this world that people just fly over to get to Asia. So that is really true of the academy as well. When people do things from our region, Asia Pacific, Pacific gets, maybe one chapter or two chapters, and the rest is dedicated to Asia. So we are the kind of forgotten part of the Asia Pacific. So I'm not happy with this label, because it's to an extent it is a colonial name that has been given to our part of the world. I also want to problematize it because of what Sugi has said. That Asia, by definition, I apologize to those of you who know the language. Asia comes from characters that actually means those people outside of China. Yeah, so even here, Philippines is Asia because it's not in China. So China is the point of definition and identification. Now that's in the past, whenever this region was named Asia. But we all know that China is everywhere, right? Just like the Indians, they are everywhere as well. And everything seems to be made in China. Even if you go up to Egypt and you want one of those carvings, you turn it over and it's made in China. And if you have some clothes, it's probably made in Bangladesh by some Chinese descended folks. So this Asia Pacific for me is problematic. What one of the movements that have been happening recently is not to speak of Pacific, but to speak of Oceania. And one of the leaders for this movement is this Tongan person, late Epeli Hauofa. He was born in Tonga, and his parents went as missionaries to Papua New Guinea. Yeah, Papua New Guinea, if you see in this map, that's the Port Moresby, that's Papua New Guinea. West Papua is not included in this thinking of Oceania. So I want to problematize this label of Oceania, because when we talk about Oceania, since Hauofa, 1998 was when his first reflection. He's not a theologian. He calls attention that we are the people of the sea, we are the ocean, we are therefore Oceania, and the way we think are defined by Oceania. Now the problem with this is that his understanding of Oceania is limited just to the southern part of this big ocean. I want to redefine Oceania by acknowledging that it is the north. I'm sorry, I have to look at my list. I'm sorry, Yuko, because I'm going to pull Japan into part of Oceania. And yeah, I'll come to that. So I prefer to speak of Oceania as this group of islands that's surrounded by the ring of fire. Yeah, so it starts down in Aotearoa and goes up to see. So with this new map, West Papua is included in Oceania. Indonesia is part of Oceania. The islands up to Philippines, up to Japan and around, you have islands. There are no islands on the edge, on the west coast of the US, but you have Hawaii. You have Rapa Nui, which is Easter Island, being occupied by, well, the US is the occupier in Hawaii, as you all know, and that includes what's called American Samoa, the Marshall Islands. France is occupying the what is known as New Caledonia, but it's actually Kanaki. Isaac knows this. This is more his area. So we are defined by the ring of fire, this fire that is under us, rather than the map of the colonizers that say you are Asians and you are Pacific Islanders. I want to spread Oceania across this. So I have Oceania, but I speak also of Pasifika. So the difference between Oceania and Pasifika, is that Oceania is referring to the whole, the south and the north. Pasifika is our native rendering of the word Pacific. Yeah, they're in the Pacific Ocean. But I reserve Pasifika for the south. And when I use Oceania, it's for everyone who is around the ring of fire. It's important, as I will explain later, that we are defined by what is under us. Yeah, the fire that flows under the ground, under the sea, because that underworld is something that Western thinkers don't always think about. But those of us in Pasifika, we are driven by what happens in the underworld, and I'll explain that shortly. So now there's this other term, Moana. Moana is a word you've probably seen. You saw that movie. If you have kids, you can't miss that Moana movie that Disney has done. So thanks to Disney, people have heard of Moana. So our attempt at the moment is to reclaim Moana as our thing and not the thing of the market as Disney has done. So what I am proposing to do, and that's why I'm here in Manila, is to distinguish Pasifika as referring to the space and Moana as referring to the worldview of those of us who are within this ring of fire. As you all know, we all think differently. So just saying that this is a Moana way of thinking is not my, I'm a Tongan, it's not my way of colonizing how other people think in our Pasifika world. It's simply to distinguish between world and worldviews. Worldviews are, of course, dependent or related or influenced by the world, by the space. So space and ideology is a distinction that I want to draw in here in terms of Pasifika. So Pasifika is space, Moana is about worldviews. And what's distinctive about Moana worldviews is that we think of 4 realms, of 4 spheres, of 4 spaces: land, sea, sky, and underworld. These 4 spaces are connected, that what happens on land is influenced by what happens in the sea and the sky and the underworld. What happens in the sky is influenced by the other spaces. So whereas some thinkers, like ecological thinkers, will only look at the land, we look at the land in relation to the sea, to the sky, to the underworld. I mean, the wind, the cyclone is about the sky, but it's influenced by the motions of the stars as well as the movements of the earth, of the land. So these are what we are beginning this project to try to relate these 4. We use this term for now, realms or spaces that influences how we think. So that's what I'm going to try to show now, is what a Moana reading would look like. And this is where I do most of my this is where most of my energy is on biblical interpretation. So, for example, the first 2 verses of the Bible, when Elohim began to create the sky and the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from God sweeping over the water. And verse 3 goes, God said, let there be, let there be, let there be. And non-Moana people are the local-centric folks will focus on what God has said. The Moana readers will go back and look at the spaces in which that are in the 4. Yeah? So the sky is there and the earth. It's not just a creation of the earth, it's a creation of the sky and the earth. It's interesting in translations, they say the creation of the heavens and the earth. Yeah, it's a way for a Moana reader. Yeah, the earth was constructed, created together with the sky, with the heavens. But we don't realize that the sky is something that is being created. The earth being unformed and void with darkness over the surface of the deep. That deep in the Moana reading is a reference to the deep, the underworld. The word for us in Tonga is pulotu, Tongans and Samoans. I don't know what the West Papuan term might be, but then that's another issue, as Isaac will explain. There are how many languages in Papua? Huh? I know that in Papua New Guinea, there are about 1,200 living languages. And West Papua, I have some comment. I'm sorry, I'm not at home, Isaac, because if I was zooming from home, there will be a West Papuan flag behind me. Because West Papua and Palestine are 2 of my commitments. Okay, that's for another. The deep here,
Thank you.
For a Moana reader, the deep represents the underworld. And how, see, for us, you might say, oh, that's the place of the darkness. That's a place of bad things coming up from the deep. But for us, civilization came up from the deep, just like fire came up from the deep in our legends. And a wind from God sweeping over the water. Yeah, the water represents here for the sea. So in the first 2 verses of Genesis, the first 2 verses of the Hebrew and the Christian Bibles, you see the 4 spheres in which Moana thinking operates. So Moana reading works. Yeah? It's just that people don't look for that space. People don't really pay attention to the sea when they read biblical texts. They look at there's a water story in the New Testament you're all familiar with. Yeah, they see the magic of Jesus walking on water, walking on rather than seeing the water itself. So these are the kind of challenges or invitations that Moana readers bring. Don't spend too much energy on what God had said, because that's a logocentric way of thinking. And logocentrism, you can, Christine can say more about that. She's it would be nice, Christine, if you were the one who introduced Puilan, so we can hear what she was like in the last several years. But okay, I'll leave that. So what does it mean for Moana theologizing? Moana theologizing needs to address the issue of colonization, because the Ring of Fire, the borders of islands that have been colonized. And colonization focuses on the land only. They came because there's a piece of land here. West Papua is a piece of land rich in resources, in the underground, in the minerals that the Indonesian government mines, and in the forestry. And everywhere you will read that Indonesia is has the second or first, the highest, the biggest one of gold and what's the other, minerals, yeah, copper, iron. That's on record as being mined in Indonesia, but it's actually in West Papua. Yeah, and West Papua is part of Oceania, as I said earlier. So colonizers came to take the land, and then they have also claimed the sea. Yeah, they divide the islands into economic zones, where Australia, where my wife works and I live most of the time, is only 3 kilometers away from Papua, only 3 kilometers away at its widest space. So they have colonized the land and divided the sea. What they have not done is look at the relation between the sky and the underworld with the land and the sea. And that's what the Moana project that we are working on. And the other project that Puilan has graciously invited me to, I'll be talking about these islands of Solomon, Papua New Guinea, how the Americans are coming, that China has come to help Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea, and the US come to push the China away, and we are like the beach pole in this part of the world. But going back to Moana theologizing, Moana theologizing is an attempt to remind people of the space in which there's interconnection between land, sea, sky, and underworld. So what might that look like? So I'll tell you this is one of our creation stories from my island in Tonga. And I consider that this is part of the movement that we do in Pasifika, is to argue that legends and songs and proverbs are sacred texts, and we need to read and understand them as sacred texts, and not just the sacred text that came with the colonizers, which is the Bible. So this is one of our sacred texts. It's a story that begins by saying that at the beginning, there were only 2 bodies, Moana, which is a word for the sea, and Pulotu, which is a word for the underworld. Moana, and then land emerged through the sea to become an island. And that island is in the south of the group that I come from Tonga. The name of the island is Ata. Then one day, a plover bird, Tongan word is kiu, came from the sky with a seed in its beak and dropped it onto the island. And then it flew away. The next time it came, there was a vine that had grown from this seed. And then somehow this bird was annoyed with the vine, so it started pecking at the root of the vine. And then the root, the vine fell. And then the bird flew away. And then the next time it came, there was a maggot lying, nice juicy maggot lying there at where it had pecked at the vine. So it was annoyed by the maggot. So it bit it into two. And out of as it was flying away, it realized that there was something left in its beak. So it shook it and fell to the island as well. And out of these, so there were two big pieces and one small piece. The first piece became Kohai, which is a female. The second piece became, the bottom piece became Koau, which is male. And the leftover remainder became Momo. And the version of our legend that I heard is that Momo, they had forgotten what its gender was, which is a native way of saying that it was queer. So our creation story is about a sky, a bird coming from the sky, and the land coming through the sea, and it came up from Pulotu. And then there's a bird that came, the bird came from the sky. So you have the sea, the underworld from where the island came, and the sky from where the bird came. But it's interesting that this is a creation story that started with a bird, an animal, but not with logos, not with word. And it's a creation story where we come not from the mouth of God and the magic of God's creation, but we have come from a maggot. We are sons and daughters of a maggot. And at the end, guess where we are going? We will just join our ancestor, the maggot that has given life to us. So what we do is to look at legends, and that's part of why I'm here in the Philippines. We look at our legends, our stories, our art, and see how these are native sacred texts, and not fall into the trap of providing our legends as illustrations for the biblical text. And I think this is a big danger in people who do contextual thinking, where you bring your cultural wisdom and you present it to bear the weight of this colonial message that have come to us through Christianity and other religions. So here comes the question, so what? It's about being aware of the mask that we are wearing. Fanon had talked about the white mask. We're actually wearing all kinds of masks. And this is an image from the chapel in this seminary. And this is a setting of worship. But the so what question is, be aware. It's not that we can totally remove our masks. The fact is, we always wear masks. We exchange masks, but be aware of which mask that you are wearing. So, friends, it's for today I'm wearing my native mask. After this, I'll be wearing my polluter's mask, because I am going to fly for like 20-something hours to get back to see my 8-year-old daughter, who's probably annoyed that I'm coming back, but I'll go back to annoy her. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your thoughts and comments. Thank you, Puilan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Havea, for sharing with us this Moana reading and theologizing. We have learned so much from you, and we hope to continue the conversation. Thank you.